Again, thank you for all giving you some of us your time this morning for some, this afternoon for most. But really, this session I just want to let everybody know is going to be recorded. So if for any reason you need to step away, there's something you miss, don't worry. We'll be sending you a recording after the session as well. And go back, rewatch. Feel free to share it. But without further ado, I'm excited to get things started for today's webinar, which is focusing on how to make the most out of your tech and equipment. As far as just a quick agenda, we'll do some brief intros. Really, though, we want to spend the most of our time focusing on the evolution of Shapiro and Duncan's fabrication, some of the growth they've realized, and really just the stepping stones that they've had to get there. Lastly, we will have a Q&A session at the end, so feel free to go ahead and submit any questions as they come to mind throughout the presentation today, or feel free to message me directly. But without further ado, I'll go ahead and get it kicked off with intros.
Hey everybody, Britton Langdon, former CEO of MSUITE now. We were acquired by Stanley Black & Decker almost 90 days ago, and now I'm the Vice President of Construction Technology at Stanley Black & Decker DeWalt. Basically, the vision for MSUITE was the same as the vision that SBD had for construction technology, just expanded. And so we chose to be acquired by SBD and now are excited to grow with them. We're the core of a new construction technology initiative at the company. And it's my job to work with all of you to find out what is the future of offsite construction tools, what is the future of construction technology as a whole, and how do we tie those things together. So thanks for having me. And Chris, thanks for having or for being on here. And David, thank you as well.
Thanks, Britton. David?
My name is David Basigi. I'm CEO of PypeServer. I've been with the company for about 4 years now. I'm actually an engineer by training, entrepreneur. I've worked at several startups. At PypeServer, the mission here is to be the software that connects all the shop tools to the to design tools upstream, MSUITE in particular, and we are very excited to be part of this project with them and take the next steps as they grow as part of Black & Decker. And you'll see, as Chris Canter describes it, the role we play, sort of taking the digital world upstream and connecting it to the physical world in the shop.
Great. Thanks, David. Chris, I'll let you intro.
Hey guys, I'm just the dumb pipe fitter that's on this call, but no, I've been in the industry for 20 years, over 20 years. Started in the field with our piping trade. Was fortunate enough to move into our VDC department very early. Was able to then see the evolution of us go through a couple fab shops and all the growing pains with that. So it's been a fun run. And then the last 6 years, I've been actually head of our VDC and fabrication efforts at Shapiro and Duncan.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. So before we go any further, we want to get a sense of, who's on the call with us. And with that, I did just want to open up a poll so we could get a sense of, again, who's on the call, what sort of level of prefabrication you're doing. So if you guys don't mind, if you have a minute, go ahead and just fill that out. We'll give you guys a couple minutes to do so.
There we go. Now we're getting some responses. Look at that.
You're coming in.
What percentage of your work is prefabricated? That's an interesting one. Very split. Matt, do you know if they can see these results at the same time, the people on this?
I believe so, yes.
That's pretty cool.
We have just another 30 seconds or so for everybody to finish that poll. Appreciate you giving us
the other 18 of you,
input.
hurry up and fill it out. This is good.
A nice split of VDC and shop guys. Awesome.
Operations and other. I've just found out from somebody on the call, they cannot see the results yet.
Okay. Maybe I need to end the poll. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap up that poll.
There we
And
go.
there you go. So we got a good mix here.
Not surprisingly, 60% mechanical, 14% piping. A lot of you are BIM or shop people, so that's great. And like I said, I'm really interested in the percentage of fabrication. I wonder in a different conversation we talk about how do you define that? Is it percent of hours? Is it total linear footage of pipe or duct or poundage or whatever that is installed that you fabricated? But that's an interesting one.
It's also interesting. It's all over the map. We got folks who are doing very little and doing a lot and everything in between.
Well, I think one thing we can say is regardless of which stage that you're at, it's going to be great to hear how Shapiro Duncan, one of the leaders in the industry, has done it. So I'll kick it back to you, Chris, to walk through Shapiro Duncan.
Yeah, so Shapiro Duncan, I can see there, founded quite some time ago. Third generation, we're moving into our fourth generation. We actually have the kids in the business right now, and they're coming up. So that's very exciting to see. We're mainly piping focused. We sub out. We're in a unique part of the country where most of our sheet metal, we have strong sheet metal partners, and we're able to sub that out. So we are strictly piping, plumbing, mechanical piping is really where we cut our teeth at. And then Shapiro Duncan does have, you can see there, we have all in-house engineers, we have a construction department, we have special projects, and we have full service really to fully service your project from beginning to end. So it's cradle to grave is what we try to provide. I guess we'll talk about the journey and kind of see where we get a lot of mistakes that we made, kind of where we started, where we were, the vision. One of the great things that I will say as I start this conversation is we had a set of owners that were very forward thinking. They wanted to be out ahead. They were willing to take risk wherever it needed to be. And they really hired the people around them that made sense to take them on this journey. And they sat back and watched and let them do their thing. So that was one unique thing that we had starting out that was very, very beneficial to this whole process. So let's go back. Roughly 1999 to 2000, we start seeing coordinated draw-ins pop up. Shapiro Duncan being in the Washington D.C. area, we have to get into the game quickly. We get into the game. We quickly see that we're moving towards tighter schedules. Even back then, competitive. And what could we do to separate ourselves? There was a local company, kind of sprinkler business. They did a little bit of plumbing, but they were moving on. I think the owners were retiring, and a shop came up for sale, about 15,000 square foot in Beltsville, and we were fortunate enough to take over that. I think we had a 5-year lease on the building. We were just going to see what happens. We went in, we saw a lot of good things. We had a lot of vision, but we didn't know where it was going to go at the time. So we went into that building. We just had some carrier tables. I think we set up one fixed torch turner that was in the building. And then everything else is pretty much hand done. And we really just gave it a shot. Our VDC team was coming up then. That's when we were first starting to learn about spool drawings and shop drawings and that whole evolution. And we started going. And
So Chris,
go ahead.
A real quick question. At this point, what percentage of the business was piping versus plumbing?
It was 50-50.
Okay. So about the same as what it is today.
Yeah, about the same way it is today. So we start down that route, and I think the first thing we fabricated out there was a steam station. I think a dual stage steam station, and that was really the one thing that came out. And you had your pipe fitters go, "Holy crap, it worked! It actually all bolted up, and this thing can work." And then we just went from there. We quickly was adopting that whole mantra, we're going to fab everything. We later, tweaked that mantra, but we were going to fab everything. And we ended up outgrowing that fabrication shop within, I think we had the 5-year lease. We outgrew it within 3 years, and we were looking for somewhere else to go. Let's see, that takes us to 2007. So the next slide is just kind of when we were saying, you know what, we're going all in. We see it can work. We have field buy-in. We have gone through some growing pains, but we were having to turn away fab because we didn't have enough space in the old facility, and we were able to get, you know, this larger facility, 53,000 square foot. You kind of walk into that and you say, Jesus, this is way big. I don't know how we're going to do this. So, you know, we sit back and I look at it now. You know, I wasn't really a part of the layout back then, but you can see where there was so much room. We were going to put the pipe side on this over in this corner, and we were going to put the plumbing side in this corner, and everyone was going to have their nice little areas to do their thing. And we started going, and it worked for years and years and years. We started in that shop with an Alabama Big Cut is where we cut all of our pipe. Anyone that you got, I mean, an awesome machine, does it can pump out some pipe. We had that one welding station we brought over from the Beltsville location, and we quickly saw that we could grow, that we had the room, so we added another station. You know, in there we started dabbling in all kinds of fab. From, you know, that's when we started thinking about, you know, the whole hybrid system. Anyone that's been in the trade, you know, you want to weld what you can in the shop. You want to, you know, have any kind of mechanical joint end in the field. It's all about productivity. What makes sense for the job. And that's when we started kind of going through that whole process. But we had those two stations we had that were welding, and we started seeing that, man, our welders, you know, were out welding the performance of the Alabama Big Cut. That we were getting bottlenecked at our cut station, and we needed to fix that if we wanted to be able to keep growing and keep going. We go faster, essentially. We wanted to go faster, and how were we going to go faster is really what we were asking ourselves. So that kind of was the bottleneck thing there. So that was, you know, it was a good problem to have. We still had plenty of room in the shop. We knew that this was where we were laying all of our eggs. We weren't afraid that we were going to, you know, make a purchase that didn't make sense. We were going to walk away from it. So we went ahead in 2009. We purchased the old original, flew out to California and bought the Vernon machine. You know, anyone that doesn't have a Vernon machine, they come in different sizes. We bought a 2 to 24, so it can plasma cut or oxyacetylene cut pipe, 2 to 24 inches. Efficiencies would blow you away. You're talking, you know, less than a minute to cut joints, cut OLETs, have that bevel, front bevel, back bevel, have your OLET cut in there, and that piece of pipe come off the machine. You're talking efficiencies with, you know, in bigger pipe that could be half an hour per cut. So it was big. It was huge for us. And we didn't have the immediate solution was we never had a backup at the cut station. We were out cutting what we could weld now, which was, you know, we had to add to our weld side. So we added an additional 2 turners. So now 2009 to 11, we have 1 Vernon, we have 3 fixed torch turners, and we are growing our VDC team to keep up. I mean, by now, you know, coordination is a mainstay. You're not doing a project without coordinating, and that's happening. And it's kind of going forward. We ran this for quite a few years, and it worked. It worked. We were able to grow our company from roughly, I don't know, 60 million, maybe 45 million, and we started moving up into that 70, $80 million mark by this time. Is really where we started going. And,
hey, Chris, on the welding stations, when you were saying you're outpacing the Alabama Big Cut, and then now you're able to add more, was it just stick welding on positioners, or was it any automated welding that you're at today? What was it back then?
So back then no, there was no, anything we did manual, completely manual, was we would fit up, and then it would move over to the fixed torch turner. So we'd have a positioner, we would have the overhead, you know, welding machine on it, and then our guys would do the root by hand, and then the fill and cap would be done by the machine.
It was like the old Jimmy Jammers. You had that even back then, right? Yeah.
Yeah, very, very similar. Very similar. So, yeah, I mean, it was working, and it was great to see. All operations were growing, but remember what I said was we came into this facility, 50,000 square foot, and we said we're going to put our weld side over there, we're going to put our plumbing side over there, and that's where everyone's going to live and be happy, and that's what's going to happen. About this time, we also invested in overhead cranes. We saw the need for overhead cranes to really start moving material around the shop, not only safely, but efficiently in loading trucks. So that was another path we went down that just made sense at the time, instead of having forklifts all running around. So let's see. So that happens 2011. And then what happens? What's the next slide? There, we start trying to figure out, everything's running smooth. We're trying to figure out where we can be more efficient, and we're just kind of doing our thing. And then we're like, you know what? We really need to manage this fabrication. We need to know where we're at in the process to see if we're going to hit deadlines, or we're going to be able to handle more capacity. And we figure no big deal. We'll go buy something. It's got to be something on the market that we can go buy. So we get out there, we talk with some friendly competition that we have and see what they're using. And we ultimately end up on a box solution. It's completely geared towards widgets and making lots of them. And with a lot of manipulation, you could make the software track packets of spools, but it was a huge time commitment. It was a lot of manual entry. It was a lot of exports from AutoCAD and fabrication software. It was a lot of, and God forbid there was a change management was horrendous. If we had to move something else to the shop, that changed. And we quickly realized that we are putting so much effort in this. There's no return. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. We got to move on, and we got to cut our loss now. And it was an expensive software. I mean, it was close to $100,000, in the investment in this software. And it was a hard decision, but we pulled the plug and we moved on. So that was a major roadblock, and we were still on that journey to find the right software, and it wasn't out there yet. We ultimately landed on, bringing in a consultant, and we talked and we went through a couple iterations of consultants and tried to figure out what made sense. And we ultimately brought in a custom programmer. Great company. They listened. They built us exactly what we wanted. They built us a access-based fabrication tracking software that we could, cost account all of our fabrication exactly to where it needed to for the end of week payroll. We knew where all of our costs were going. We knew that if we were cutting pipe, we were charging to a cutting code per se. We knew that we were all of our guys, that we weren't just at the end of the week saying, oh, well, what did Britton work on? Oh, okay, yeah, that's what he worked. No, it was all real time tracked. And I say real time, it was real time, but anyone that's lived on the SQL database and access, you got to wait for it to sync, whatever your syncing platform is, in ours, it would sync every morning at 3 o'clock. So it was, you don't think about it a day late, but it's a lot to wait a day to see what's going on sometimes. And but it worked, and we ran that. You can see there, we ran that custom software from 2012 to 14, I think into 15 actually, and it's kind of one of the things where you went down a wormhole and it kept going and you kept going, and next thing you know, you're heavily invested, and then you almost think there's no going back. But we went with it. But at the end of the day, we had all this data. You remember I was saying we were tracking all this time. We knew where all this stuff was going. I couldn't get any information out of the software other than I had a rock solid timesheet at the end of the week for my employees. You know, it took our time validation way down. So any shop managers on here, you know how that goes. End of the week, trying to figure out where time goes and try to get it submitted while accounting's yelling at you or payroll's yelling at you to get it in. It checked all those boxes. So it was, it worked in that sense. But around that time, I think we had some guys that were moving out of the company, just retiring, whatever it was. And we kind of stepped back and we had this custom software. You know, my owners, we weren't really getting the data out of it that we wanted. You know, the ownership, you know, they want how much faster you're doing fabrication. How much faster can you do this than what we do on site? And I knew I had the information, I just couldn't display it. And so I was like, there's got to be a better way. And at the time, I was our VDC manager. We were coming off a little bit of a transition there, and you know, I was young. I had ideas, and then we stepped back and we decided as a company to merge our VDC and fabrication operations under one manager. And there was a couple of reasons for that. And I mean, I guess I drew the short straw and became that manager. But at that time, you have a fab shop that's running, and now you're starting to see a lot of tech. You're starting to see a lot of this BIM model, everything, you know, remember back to 2015, 16, everyone had this vision of everything's in the model. It wasn't ready, but that's what everyone said. It's got to come from the model. You know, we had our fab team that had no idea what a model was. And then we had a VDC team that had no idea how to get this data out to the fab shop. And we needed someone to bridge the gap that could speak both languages and know where the fabrication team was struggling and know where the VDC team was struggling to make these two one sing in one, you know, harmony. And that's why we did this. That way I had knowledge on both the VDC side. I had been working with the fab shop, you know, hand in hand for years. And it made sense for our company to do it this way. So I take over, you know, I had a great team. I had awesome fab managers. I had awesome guys in our VDC team. They all were, you know, wanting to come together. We saw that this was, you know, this is Shapiro and Duncan. You know, this is how we're feeding our family. We're a fabrication company. We are heavy fabrication. We want to promote the trade. We want our, you know, our skilled labor to be as good as they can be, but we know that to meet schedules, to meet deadlines, to do all this stuff we need to do, we need to make sure that fabrication is not only a part of our process, but we know everything about that fab that's coming through our shop so we can make decisions based off the data. Let the data tell us what our decisions need to be. And whether it comes from something as simple as working overtime or something to meet a deadline, or if it is to say, hey guys, I don't think we can, to have that honest conversation with the field team. I don't think I can meet that. What opportunities do we have to make this work, whether we split it up or whatever that may be? And that's really where we went. So I think one day I was sitting at the computer and I was like, you know, there's got to be a software. And I do a search. And lo and behold, I see this young strapping guy from the middle of the US, and he's given some presentation, and he's if any of you guys know Britain, I mean, he could sell ice to an ice Eskimo, but he's stumbling through. It's probably one of the first ones he's ever done coming out of the work, you know, side that he's been on. And I'm like, this guy's speaking all my language. He's got a software that tracks time at a joint level, which I just spent, you know, a huge number trying to develop that software because I wanted to see what we do things at a joint level. I had already perfected the timesheet portion of it. So I knew that the new software had to have a time component to it. And ultimately I needed to have a status through the shop and be able to share that with any stakeholder that wanted to see it so that we can make those decisions I just talked about. And I think, I don't know, Britton, what I send you a LinkedIn, I don't even know, the LinkedIn message or something. I don't even know. Maybe I aim IOL instant message you back then. Who knows?
Yeah, that was probably it.
That's probably what it was. You know, we have a conversation, and we start working towards it. And next thing I know, I think I'm in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, you know, meeting with Britton's former company, and we're kind of going through some things. And it made sense. And that was, you know, that's a hard sell. You come back from it to an owner and say, look, I know we've invested, I don't know, $1 million in a custom software, and I want to walk away from it. And I want to walk away from it for these reasons. And the reasons made sense to our entire team, and we made the switch. So 2016, I think Britton, that's when you told me yesterday, I think you were in the shop doing training. So 2016, I think we were officially on back then FabPro MSUITE, and we were moving forward. You know, we ran MSUITE for a few years. It went through, it was very early on in the in MSUITE world. I think there was yeah, a lot of changes. You know, Britton was still cutting his teeth. He was still, you know, jet setting around the US, understanding how these shops work. And I think Britton, you would say, you walked into all these shops, you know, thinking that, hey, I have this software that can fix all your problems. And you walk in and someone calls, you know, a cut station, who knows, the Alabama Big Cut, what I call it, the Vernon station, and Britton software just calls it the cut station, and you just put cut station in front of one of your shop guys. They have no idea what that is. No, that's the Vernon station. It's not the cut station. And I mean, you can speak to some of that, Britton.
Yeah, no, it was a very painful 3 years from 2016 to 2019. So a lot of proverbial bloody noses and a lot of people that wanted to give me real bloody noses, I would guess, at the time. So yeah, it was rough. I'm glad to be past that.
It was, but it was great. Britton's team, you know, they understand that they had the software. They stepped back a few times and rewrote the software based on customer feedback. And I think, you know, today it's as customizable as you can get. I know I jump ahead, but you know, you can tailor the software to be whatever you want to be called each station through your shop. If you have a flow through your shop, you know, pretty much the software can handle it. So one of the nice things I said back for Shapiro Duncan is, you know, we'd already gone past, and a lot of people in this call that maybe haven't dived into this world is, you know, you get that whole aspect of, you know, okay, I'm running a clock on everything I do in the shop. How's the shop going to react to that? The whole big brother aspect. And, you know, really for us, it was just about transparency, what we were trying to do, what we were trying to accomplish. What we were trying to accomplish is way bigger than if they took an extra 10 minutes on their break. You know, that's not what this was about. This was trying to get down and dirty time to make sure that we had accurate information, whether I didn't want to believe the information, I wanted accurate information. And I wanted that information to be able to be digested in a visual manner that any owner could look at and say, okay, you guys are doing a good job, or okay, you guys are tanking, what's going on? At the same time, I didn't want all that manual entry. So the software needed to work to be as automatic as possible, to where data is being collected without the guy on the shop floor even understanding that he's clicking a clock or a timer or whatever's happening behind the scenes. And the software was able to be, you know, customized or tailored to where you can't do something without the guy finishing the job, the task in front of them in a manner that and then you can see it. So having kind of some of those fail safes in there to make sure that we couldn't skip in the process really got that time as accurate as possible. And that was very, very, it needed to happen. That's how it had to happen. There was no other way to do it. So now we have a software. We're able to track. I'm able to see what percentages we are in the progress of the job. And then boom, 2018-19 hits, data center craze goes crazy. I have my one Vernon that's been running. You know, she's been completely bulletproof up until now. Now the fab shop's running 3 shifts, 24 hours a day. we're hitting all these critical mission data jobs, and then boom, Vernon breaks. And it's like, you know, it's like anyone that has a Vernon or any kind of automated machine, when the guy comes in from the shop floor and says, hey, the Vernon's down, it's just like you just shake your head and put it down, because you know it's going to cost a lot of money, first off, and then two, it's how it does. The money doesn't even matter. How fast can we get it up and operational again so we can start our process? Of course, we had the Alabama big cut to fall back on. We have, you know, manual processes, that's fine, but you know, the efficiencies in your automated process. So we're able to get the Vernon back up and running, and we ended up buying another Vernon. But let me stop there for a second. What we were able to do here is, when you got into that data center market and having a software, a shop solution that is in the cloud and is able to be shared with any stakeholder that you would like to share it with, that was a key element to us in gaining the trust in some of these clients, is being able to show them, hey, even though you're building this building at record speed, here is the progress of your work that's all being done off site, and you can watch it, and it's real time. And this, I mean, Brett, how often does it upload? It updates every 30 seconds or 45 seconds or so.
Depending on what it is, it's live, but yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, live data, and that was the biggest thing, is the live data. And if we went back to our other custom software where we had it on the SQL and it had to sync every night, you had a welder weld a joint, and then he had to wait till tomorrow to see how much he got done, or to see his progress, or whatever he wanted to see, if he even cared. But now with this software, the guy welds a joint, he goes to use the bathroom, he walks right by the screen that has how many joints he's done, and he can see right there the live feedback. It's believable. That's the big thing, is making sure the software is believable. So we start going there. We have two Vernons now. I guess go on to the next slide, Matt. So we have our two machines. We get through our data center craze. We are understanding that, and this is me just kind of watching from afar. Again, just a CAD guy to start, and then now in charge of all the shop stuff, is I have these two machines. I have the one machine that was bought in 2009, and the newest machine was bought in 2018, and they're the exact same machine. They're no faster than they were 10, 12 years ago. The machine cuts the same way. I don't know if any of you guys have watched a Vernon pipe profiler cut, but it pretty much, it cuts, and then it zeroes at home, it goes out, it cuts, and then it comes back to home, the pipe moves. Goes out and makes the cut, comes back to home, the pipe moves. As fast as the efficiencies were that you make up in the cut, just the overall antiquated motion of the machine, it was just didn't make sense to me. Furthermore, I had a guy there that had to take our drawing, which was in the cloud, and he had to key in all the cuts. So, you know, decimal inch cut had to go into the machine, and he had to hit cut. Decimal inch cut goes in the machine, he hits cut, and over and over and over again. And it just, there had to be a better way. And the better way, I thought, was everything's in the cloud. That's what everyone tells me. Everything needs to be in the cloud nowadays. Everything's much better in the cloud. Why are we not utilizing all the cuts that are in the cloud to do this process? And why has no one thought this out? And, you know, I'm sitting there, I start hearing about PypeServer. You know, no offense, David, I kind of wrote you off to begin with. You know, I was like, oh, there's no way somebody figured this out, and they're not, you know, their corporate colors aren't black and red. And and you know, I start listening, and all of a sudden I hear that MSUITE and Britton's hitting me up, and he's saying, hey, I think we got a partnership going. I think we can make this work. I think it's going to make sense. And I'm all ears. I'm all ears, and mainly because all I'm looking to do is eliminate the guy putting in the decimal inch cut into the machine all day, every day, you know, 280 hours a year. That's the guy. I'm like, there's so much more stuff I can have this guy doing than just keying in cuts. And I think, and Britton, maybe you can speak, and David, a little bit how your guys' partnership came together there. But it was great, and it seemed to be like it was going to be the answer. But so we go there. I get with Britton. We start beta testing some stuff about 2 years ago. And we have all this stuff in the cloud. And let me talk about that real quick, how we get the stuff in the cloud. And it sounds like it's going to be a tedious process. But in reality, it's clicks of the button. There's one click of the button. We create PDFs in Revit. There's an upload portion. There's a whole, I guess, toolbar written in MSUITE toolbar. And when you push out to the cloud, as long as everything's named correctly, it's a pretty simple process. Our spoolers handle it within our company. It goes out to the cloud. As long as you have a cut station that has a nested feature enabled on it, which is just a click of the button when you're setting up the station, the PypeServer integration will ultimately bring those cuts in. So there's a click of the button to take it out to the cloud. And once it's in the cloud, PypeServer has access to it. It's going to come down into your PypeServer, and then the PypeServer software is integrated with your Vernon. That's a separate process that has to handle one-time setup. And then it can start cutting. And really what happens is in PypeServer, and David, I'm going to go very high level here, but you have all your cuts and you hit auto nest, and an auto nest is going to throw as many cuts that make sense on whatever length of pipe you have. Whether you have 21 footers, if you have some obscure pipe that's only coming in and some random blanks, you just got to put that information in, and PypeServer is going to handle the rest. Another thing I saw with the PypeServer software was, and remember, I was just trying to get rid of the one guy to use him in a different capacity. Originally, I said Vernon cuts, it comes back to home. It cuts, it comes back to home. Now, all of a sudden, PypeServer has interacted with this thing where it cuts, and then it cuts again, and then it keeps on moving down to cut the entire length that your carriage assembly can roll down that piece of pipe, and then it comes back. So you're talking, Vernon machine is already very, very efficient. Let's say cuts 30 seconds. It's probably less than that. Now I have a PypeServer that's not coming all the way back to home. We were just talking about the cut. Now I'm cutting almost 2 to 3 times faster with PypeServer, and I've eliminated the guy with the manual entry. So it's been great. It's been great on that sense. Like I said, we've only been fully operational for about the last year. We've already seen a tremendous set of efficiencies as far as our cuts are just done in a faster time. And then the bigger thing is, we have this automated software, MSUITE, that's tracking our progress. And PypeServer, as they cut, it's pushing that information back into MSUITE, which is going back into the cloud, which can come back down to my model, and I can see exactly where we're at in the cut process to see if things have been cut with the PypeServer software without touching anything. It's all automatic. So,
hey, Chris, sorry,
yeah.
I just wanted to ask you about waste and drop usage and that sort of thing. Are you taking advantage of that with PypeServer as well? Yeah,
and one of the nice things, David, is the software is very, I guess this, but manipulable to where, if we see something that doesn't make sense, we can flip the cuts. Every Vernon machine, whether you have a Watts or you have the Vernon, there's a dead zone. There's a dead zone in the pipe, and the software recognizes the dead zone. And we can minimize that waste as much as possible. So it's very useful, David. Some of the future stuff, I don't know what time is it? Are we 2:40? All right. Some of the future stuff we're looking, definitely round tripping data in the model. We're still, we started this conversation right around 2015, everything had to be in the model. We still don't have everything in the model. We're still working towards getting everything in the model. It's slowly getting there. Eventually the model is just part of the actual, VDC, the BIM model is just part of the data. And, it's all about the data and what you can do with it. So, I'm not completely sure what that looks like, but we all know it needs to be in the model, right? That's what everyone's told us. So we got to get it in the model. And then future integration, and David, you can speak a touch on this. I believe PypeServer has come out with some light versions of their software, and they're going to be able to interject with Tiger stops, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's so one of the things I was tasked to do at PipeServer was to expand our footprint in the shop beyond just pipe cutting. So we're on multiple brands of pipe cutter, Vernon and others, but as you mentioned, we're on the pushers and positioners, Tiger Stop, Razor Gauge, Kentucky Gauge, and others are coming along as well. So as I said at the beginning, what we're really trying to do is become the physical extension of MSUITE here, where anything that any of the information for fabrication that MSUITE can provide, we can utilize for cutting now and in pipe and tube and copper and strut, whatever you're cutting, and then very shortly down the road onto the automated welding side as well. So we want to be the hands that attaches to the MSUITE brain, I guess is how I'd characterize it.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate you walking through your whole journey there. It's incredible to see the growth and just really see the intricacies of each step that got you to where you are today. So thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now we're going to open it up for some questions. So if you haven't already and you had a question, feel free to submit it through Zoom Q&A. But it looks like we do have a few coming in right away. So let's see. Okay, I'm seeing one here. So you mentioned, Chris, that your owners were very forward thinking. Why do you think that was?
I think to be able to make that much of an investment before you, there's a huge investment in a fab shop. I mean, anyone looking to open a fab shop, the equipment, Vernon machine right now, I think a new Vernon's $500,000 if you get 40-foot beds and everything. The first one we bought for 250 even back then, that 250,000, I mean, that's a huge chunk of change. So when I say forward thinking was one, they allowed the right guys to make decisions, and they back the decisions as far as providing them with the budget they needed to go get the stuff that was going to make us as best as we can be. And they weren't afraid to make a mistake. And that was a big thing. Back then when I first took over, I was 30 years old. I mean, to let a 30-year-old buy a $500,000 machine, that's pretty good. So that's why when I say forward thinking, that's why I go with that.
Okay, we have another one here from Guy again. He's asking, I haven't heard how the shop budget for fab gets set. Does MSUITE integrate with the estimate in the BIM model to transfer the hours to the fab shop such that a rack could be budgeted?
I believe there is budgeting in MSUITE. I believe it's manual. Britton, you could speak a little bit to that right now.
Yeah, but he's talking about the FP budget.
Oh.
You want to answer that? You want me to?
So the fab budget, when you talk about hours for the actual.
Yep.
So what's unique about Fab Pro is yes, you start with a static budget, whatever that joint inches may be, whatever that is. What's unique about Fab Pro is after 100 joints, I believe it is, 100 joints, the budget becomes dynamic. So it goes out, say I push a package from VDC up to MSUITE, up to Fab Pro, and there's 100 6-inch weld joints on it. Well, it's going to go out and it's going to look into my system, and it's going to say, hey, Shapiro and Duncan for the last 100 joints or however many it is, has done that at about 8 inches an hour. So when I push that package up, it should take roughly 10 hours to do. So it's going to look at dynamic inches that are within our unique system, and it's for our facility, and say how fast we should be able to do that and set a budget.
And then to the other part of that, the static budget, that's just a default setting. You can set that to be whatever your estimates are if you'd like. And then the other piece of that, when it comes down to racks, typically that's a different workflow than just a standard piping or plumbing workflow. It might be like a multi-trade, or maybe even call it rack. Those are all completely customizable. But what Chris is talking about also looks at the workflow it's going through. So a 6-inch weld through a rack workflow might be different than a 6-inch weld through a standard piping workflow, because they are different. And so when we look at those static and dynamic hours, it does look at those variables to make sure to get the estimate as accurate as it possibly can.
Yeah, I'm going to go one more on Britain's. The workflow that you're looking at can be to where you have a rack workflow or a carrier workflow where you can have multiple trades, because you can cost code at a stage level. So I can have one workflow to build a plumbing carrier or a multi-trade rack, and have all the cost accounted exactly where it needs to go per the station that the worker's working on. So that has been a new feature added, I think, over the last couple of years, which has been great.
Awesome. Here's one from Tyler. How many fabricators do you average in your shop? How many VDC designers, etc., do you have to support sending work to the shop?
Fabricators, we run 2 shifts. We roughly have between plumbing and piping side, probably about 30 day shift and 15 night shift. And then there's a lot of support around VDC designers. We have about 20. We have some strategic partners as well throughout the world that we work with as well. So upwards to from 20 in-house upwards to maybe 30, 40 if I need them.
Right. And it looks like I got one more. What was the actual setup process with MSUITE and or PypeServer? I know you've mentioned how you were introduced, but it looks like they want to get some insight into the actual setup of it.
Setup, as far as MSUITE goes, it's discovery with Britain's team. They'll kind of come out and work with setting up flow through your shop. Every shop's unique. And that's one of the nights I didn't even touch on that, how we were able to expand our shop and kind of go more of a linear workflow. I talked in the beginning, we kind of had the one space for piping and one for plumbing. After seeing the data come out and understanding where there were bottlenecks, now I'm looking at bottlenecks just in the flow. We move things to be a lot more linear, which has helped out. So MSUITE setup is fairly easy. As far as pushing from VDC to MSUITE, from Revit to MSUITE, it's simple. It reads right out of your database, your CAD database, and that's going to be pushed up. And then likewise, if you have more of just a customer or field workflow that comes in, those can be also easily added to the system as well. And then on the PypeServer side, I've just recently really worked with I haven't worked with Britain's team in quite a bit because we've been pretty much set, but David has a set of developers and technical guys that are pretty good. And these guys have been very responsive, and that system has been very easy. Again, I took a shop mechanic that really never used a computer before, and he's been the one setting up PypeServer. So it's worked all the way around.
Awesome. Well, it looks like that wraps up all the questions that we had come in. Appreciate those, you guys. With that, we'll go ahead and conclude today's webinar. If you guys have any questions, if you want to learn a little bit more about MSUITE PypeServer, my email address is there. My name is Matt with MSUITE. We'll also be sending out, as mentioned, a recording of this webinar. So if you have any questions, then you can feel free to just reply to that email, and we'll be glad to put you in touch with somebody if you're interested in learning more. Aside from that, thank you guys all very, very much for your time, and hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.